Welcome back, everyone. Now, we've been talking about optics off the top of this show here, and it's a challenge that Republican Party organizers acknowledge here. Mother Nature, they have certainly not done any favors to the GOP. Now, let's go live to Tampa. Andrew Whitman's been there all week, and he joins us now with more on some of the unfolding challenges of a couple hundred miles away from where you are, Andrew.
Absolutely, Rich. But first, an update from the convention floor. The roll call is over, and Mitt Romney's name has now officially been put into nomination by the Republican Party. But back to the image of the party, especially with Hurricane Isaac churning in the Gulf. I'm joined now by ABC News political analyst Rick Klein. Rick, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
This doesn't look all that good to have a balloon drop and a big party going while there's a storm brewing in the Gulf, does it?
That's right. Everyone's watching the weather here. Not the weather in Tampa, of course, but up the Gulf Coast a little bit. A lot of concern here about the optics of the split-screen image of this hurricane hitting an American city, maybe even New Orleans, at the same time that everyone's in here partying. So they've been talking widely and extensively about how to scale back celebrations. But the problem is we've got 120,000 balloons up there ready to drop. It's hard to do that in a not-so-celebratory way.
Now, the Gulf Coast is going to be solidly Romney country, so probably not concerned about losing votes directly in the storm's path. But do you think this plays beyond the Gulf Coast area?
No question, and particularly because of New Orleans with the anniversary of Katrina just tomorrow. People are worried about the possibility of that, and just also just drawing the attention away. This is in so many ways an event that is driven by media coverage, and if the media is elsewhere covering other stories, it takes away from the one clear shot that the Romney campaign has to introduce their candidate.
You know, all sorts of federal funding have come under attack by Republicans in their platform and elsewhere, including funding for FEMA. I spoke with Rand Paul earlier today, and he said, I'd be fine with it as long as we cut in order to offset what we'd have to spend on FEMA. Do you think this is going to bring up those cuts, especially when it comes to FEMA and other critical agencies?
Depending on how bad the hurricane is and what the calls for support is, you always see politicians of every stripe say we need more support for our region when they're hit, but when it comes down to it, you're looking at serious budget crises and budget crunches. I think if you were to ask people in this room, even a lot of Paul supporters, of course, and you ask them whether they think the federal government should be spending these many millions and billions of dollars on FEMA, they would say there's areas to cut there. So it is awkward on several levels for Republicans to have to be facing, again, this split screen situation.
But no plans, at least as far as you know, from the party to alter the convention or truncate it any further than it already has been. I mean, they've made a few head nods from the podium.
The one thing that absolutely has to happen this week is that Mitt Romney accepts the nomination that he just received on that floor behind us. So if they do that, it has actual legal meaning because it allows him to start spending money that he raised for the election. It qualifies him for the debates. Everything else is optional, but they don't want to take the option of taking these things away. So as of now, they're going to be on schedule. They're going to be on track. They were talking, at least earlier in the week, about a severely truncated convention. Of course, they lost the one day. Not a lot of people think they lost that much as a result of it. Now they're just sort of going hour by hour with the weather, watching the reports as they come in. So far, we're having things go off exactly as planned.
Let me ask you, how do the Democrats handle this? It seems a little in poor taste to just be mentioning it all the way through. I mean, how do you think we're going to get the response from Obama's campaign and from the Democrats in Charlotte next week?
A big signal from the Democrats. The politics are on. The president is going through with a college tour that he had today and tomorrow, so he's willing to play the game. I think we're going to see that kind of build through next week. They're going to be very quick to be out there to end any kind of momentum that Mitt Romney gets out of this. This is not a time that he's going to go dark, and I think with the storm, he was out today talking as a president. You see him as a candidate. He'll be wearing both hats throughout. Neither candidate, though, is going to cede any time in this environment.
Would you anticipate a presidential visit, let's say, to an impacted area, or would that just be such blatantly obvious politicking that it might actually work against him?
It depends on how bad, but I think they're going to be inclined not to do that because of the stories about how many resources get taken away from a presidential visit. Unless there's something significant that he can do in the middle of the storm, then I think he's going to be very careful about playing that particular card.
There's one other story that's been brewing on the floor today that I just want to ask you about while I got you here, and that's the Ron Paul contingent. They have been very vocal. They feel like they've been shut out of the debate or shut out of the convention. Is there anything serious to take out of all of this, or is this simply the Ron Paul group doing what Ron Paul supporters seem to do best?
They are disproportionately loud. They don't represent a majority or even really a large minority. However, it is significant that Mitt Romney, even at this moment that he's supposed to bask in the glory of the party, has not taken ownership of the party, hasn't even taken ownership of his own convention. You go around this room, and I've been talking to delegates the last couple of days, people are buzzing about these rules changes, about Ron Paul, about making sure that it isn't about Mitt Romney, it isn't about Paul Ryan. Some of them even seem almost apologetic that they're supportive of the ticket because of all the arguments that are going on right now. So I think there's some mismanaging going on there in terms of how you handle this energy right there. Mitt Romney, though, has to take this energy. It can't just be get rid of Obama. It has to be let's elect Mitt Romney.
But is that the kind of thing that, plays for you and me and political watchers, or does that reach all the way to, average voters in their living rooms, or do they just not care about this sort of thing?
I think it matters almost not at all once you start seeing the speakers get out there, assuming this is a flawlessly executed convention with the big speakers out there. That's what they have to worry about. I don't think they have to worry about scattered bands of Ron Paul supporters. That said, though, these folks in this room have to be Romney's army. They have to fan out across this country, make the case for him. A lot of them aren't willing to do that.
Well, I also want to ask you about two speeches that we're anticipating this week. First, Mitt Romney's. How critical is it to his campaign? Does he have to knock the ball out of the park, really, in order to make this count?
No question. And I've seen him give big speeches before. I think even when he came back from the Salt Lake Olympics and brought that Olympics back, he gave a terrific nationwide speech. He can deliver in a big moment. He has to do it. People have a perception of him that is colored through the lens of Barack Obama and his surrogates and his allies. So he has to begin to make the case for himself, and there's no better way to do that than through yourself.
And then the second speech, I know you're a Long Island native, so you keep in tune with what's happening in the tri-state. Chris Christie having a moment in the sun all week, everywhere he's gone. He's just been mobbed. What do you expect from him tonight, and how critical is this for his future plans?
I think in so many ways he is the emotional gut of the party right now, the heart, the beating heart of the Republican Party. He is as animated a public speaker, as effective a communicator as there is. I think he's got an opportunity to say, hey, we're not your father's Republican Party. Not even about Mitt Romney so much as the party. Big moment for that. And I think also big moment for Chris Christie. He's had a tendency in the past to kind of take himself to the next level, go over the top himself, rein himself in a little bit, bask in the moment. But I think he's got a very bright political future in Republican politics.
All right, Rick Klein, ABC political analyst. Thanks so much for the time. Appreciate it. So the convention here continues. What we're expecting next on the floor, Rich, would be the nomination of Paul Ryan for vice president. That's the latest from here in Tampa. Let's send it back to you in the studio.
All right, Andrew, nice job. We'll talk to you in a little bit. And Paul Ryan, of course, will be speaking tomorrow. The two big names here tonight, guys, obviously Chris Christie, aforementioned, and also Ann Romney, with two very distinct jobs. Now, I know it's inside baseball, Tom, but by now, the fact that it's not just the Ron Paul, the Tea Party folks, if you listen to what we're saying, they feel they're being muzzled. They feel that, hey, the establishment here, they just wanted to take our basic love and support, take us for granted, and it ain't going to work that way, especially after what we delivered in 2010. Is that a problem for the party here, that everybody's getting behind and singing the same song as they move forward, and we got less than 3 months to go?
Well, I'll disagree, because I really believe it's not the Tea Party. I mean, I've looked at congressional races. I'm involved in some congressional races around New York State, and the Tea Party is bought in more than anybody. As I've said for a very long time, I think because of Obama. More than anything. I think that those are the people that were angry over Obamacare in 2010. They remain angry after the Supreme Court ruling. I think what Andrew's talking about is a small group of Ron Paul supporters who, quite frankly, they lost and get over it and move on. It's not the Tea Party. The Tea Party is energized, and they're the ones, quite frankly, we've seen them throughout New York State who are volunteering, making calls, willing to go knock on doors for congressional candidates. They're very engaged in this process. I've seen it.
Much ado about nothing. I think the media in Tampa, frankly, is bored, the national media, and we look for a story sometimes when there is no story. I think we're looking at the official coronation, and that's what it is, of Mitt Romney, and the general election begins. This is nothing in terms of that issue.
Good enough. When we come back, we're going to talk about the impact of the Tea Party. Tom says they've bought in, but certainly there's no debate. They have shaped the platform of the party. We're going to talk about not just the speakers, but the messages and, again, the issues that we're going to be hearing in Tampa this week and certainly from now through November. Stay with us as we go out with a live shot of Tampa.